everybody. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Eden Bebon of lightcycleastrology.com. Today, we are doing part 2 of Mercury Retrograde that is happening right now in the sign of Capricorn. This is 2022, just at the end of the year here. Yesterday, we did part 1 of this series, which essentially got into the astrological symbolism of Mercury and Mercury Retrograde. And we also connected it to the planet's actual movement in the heavens. We took a look and did a demonstration in an astronomy program called Starry Night Pro. So if you're interested in making a retrograde less of an abstract idea for you, that's a great video because I demonstrate what it looks like when Mercury is cruising around in its orbit, what makes it look like it's going backwards, because that's really not what it's doing in reality. But from our perspective here on Earth, retrograde planets are traveling backwards through the zodiac, and that's where we get all of the symbolism from. That reversal of motion is an omen for something changing fortune or changing course or having something that needs to be rethought or redone. So go ahead and check that video out if you want more on that. Today, what we're going to get into is we're going to take the Mercury retrograde in Capricorn through each of the 12 rising signs. Now, a lot of people, when they look at their horoscope, they turn to their sun sign. Whatever sun sign that they know that they are is the horoscope that they will listen to. So if they think that they're an Aries sun, that's what they'll listen to. But if you're unfamiliar with Hellenistic or ancient or classical astrology, or even in the modern sense, it's always really, really good to check out the horoscope for your rising sign, because that orients the birth chart the same way it is in your natal birth chart. So the horoscope that is really the one that I suggest listening to is your rising sign. So for that, you just need to know what time that you were born, and then you listen to that horoscope. So we're going to take the Mercury retrograde and see where that falls in each of the 12 rising signs today. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. Now, I'm just going to make this kind of simple because sometimes it gets too convoluted when you add too many things in. But we're going to start off by putting Aries on the ascendant here. And I'm going to get my annotation now. Just bear with me a little bit today, because in typical Mercury retrograde fashion, my computer and software have been really acting up. Everything is different. Like Zoom has done something different. They've relaunched features or something, and so everything is completely different. The features are weird, and so I'm having a Mercury retrograde moment even just trying to make this video. But anyway, let's go ahead and so we're going to put Aries on the ascendant here. So we've got Aries, and then there's the ascendant. So whatever time you were born, if the ascendant is rising in, it doesn't matter if it's rising in the first degree of a particular zodiac sign or the last degree, that entire zodiac sign is going to represent your first house, or your first whole sign house as it's referred to. So if you are an Aries ascendant or Aries rising, this is going to place the Mercury retrograde action happening right now in Capricorn. That's going to fall in your 10th whole sign house of career, practice, reputation, success, achievement. And this is going to be something about those topics, right? It's going to be something that may have to do with a reversal of technical ability or plans or communication at the workplace or within things that you're trying to accomplish right now out in the world. There could be an interesting reversal of reputation, where when Mercury stations and pauses for a moment, that's the time where something doesn't seem to move. So it might be, for instance, that this could be a moment if you have been doing something and people are watching that and watching your progress. It might take a moment for the recognition to come through. And maybe there's a moment where you're sort of waiting for that recognition. But in any case, there's something that is on pause. Sometimes with a 10th house topic, we can see things that are actually related to like a marriage, or like a birth of a child or something like this. And that's because reputation falls into many categories. So if you are going through a change in marital status or parental status, those have reputational effects for our rank out there in the world, right? If we become married, our status changes. So we could see a reversal if you're an Aries rising in anything that has to do with status or reputation, career. And it is connected to Venus. So it might have something to do with relationships, or it might have something to do with anything social, like friend groups or anything like that. Now, one thing that is interesting, if we pull in the other whole sign houses that Mercury topically represents for Aries risings, we are pulling in the 6th house of work, service, and oftentimes strife. And also the 3rd house of siblings, daily routines, the mental habits of the mind. So we're pulling all of these things. So there may be a correlation with some of these things where something is happening at work. You're having to do maybe like an endless task that seems like it's never going to be over and it's difficult. Maybe there's some strife around whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish right now out in the world. And it could be pulling in some of your daily routines or rituals or habits, or maybe you're having to go back to the drawing board and figure out how you can juggle your schedule or change a routine or something like that. Or maybe it can even be a mental process that you're starting to look at and begin how to figure out how to revamp something mentally, just in order to make goals realized or get the work done or whatever it is, something like that. So that is what I have for Aries rising. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and put Taurus rising on the ascendant here. And then we're going to see that the Mercury retrograde is happening in the 9th whole sign house if you're a Taurus rising. So the 9th whole sign house has to do with oftentimes religion, our guiding philosophical principles. It's like, what is it that we hold as some kind of higher principle for ourselves, the way in which we want to guide our lives? Each of us has different kinds of philosophies that we try to adhere to. And sometimes with the Mercury retrograde happening in the sign of Capricorn that's falling in your 9th house, it's going to be something like there's a very serious pause and then maybe reversal of what philosophies you might need, or philosophies that you've previously held that are now being called into question. And there's something maybe about ready to change philosophically for you that is going to help guide you into the future. So it could be something like that. Now, we're going to connect this topically. Mercury is the ruler of your 5th house and your 2nd house now. So could there be a connection with children, or some creative way that you express yourself? Could there also be some connection to your own finances, resources, or learning of skills that is all somehow coming into the 9th house? Also has to do with higher education and higher learning. So anything that is sort of raising your consciousness or awareness. So I could see that maybe there is a connection with a way that you can be creative to make money in order to follow. Maybe you want to switch into doing something to make money that is more in line with what you feel like you should be doing, or what your higher calling is in life. I could see that for a Mercury retrograde in the 9th house, something along those lines. So you get the idea. These are just basic delineations that are meant to sort of point you in the right direction so that you can sort of understand philosophically maybe what's happening with you in those areas. But okay, so that's what I've got for Taurus rising. We'll get rid of the circles here, and let's go ahead and move now Gemini to the ascendant. And we are going to see now that the Mercury retrograde is happening in your 8th whole sign house right here. 8th whole sign house. Now, this Mercury retrograde is connected to Venus. As Mercury stations to turn backwards, he is also, I should say she, because right now she's the evening star in her feminine form, but she also makes this contact with Venus. There's a conjunction between Venus and Mercury. So this makes me wonder if there is something happening with the the sharing of resources or the overcoming or rethinking of fear. There could be something, the eighth house is a really interesting house because essentially what it is, it's the part of the chart that is it's destined to head towards the setting, the Western setting angle. So there's a sense in which sometimes things have to return back from whence they came. So for instance, the second house might represent that you buy a new car, and it's like that house now represents this possession that you have that's brand new and shiny and you love it and you're going to take care of it. But at some point, that new possession is going to age and it's going to reach its shelf life. And so the eighth house is sometimes a good way to think about it is like that's the place where that new shiny car, maybe you've had it now already for, I don't know, 15 years, or I guess we don't keep cars that long anymore, but you know what I mean. Maybe you've had it for some time now and it's reached its shelf life. And now this could be a time where you're thinking about going out and getting a loan and trading in the cars. So this could be an exchange of some kind of resource or something that is sort of not holding on to its value anymore, and it needs to be exchanged. This could also have to do, of course, with anything that is ready to leave us at this time. Sometimes we get fines or fees or taxes, or we have to repay loans. Bill comes due at this time. So there could be a shift in resources for sure when you're talking about a Mercury retrograde in the eighth house. And we are going to plug in now topically Mercury for Gemini ascendants is going to topically rule the fourth house of home and family and also your first house. So this is really existential because we're pulling in the topics of the self, the mind, the body, the psychology of the first house, along with the powerful angle of home and family, perhaps father. Mercury is going to be the topical ruler of these two houses for Gemini rising. So there may be some connection to, in order for you to know exactly who you are as a personal individual, there may be some way in which you are experiencing a change in resources, maybe as it pertains to a partner or spouse. Maybe there's maybe you have to rethink who's splitting the bills, who's earning the money for the household. There could be some tie-in with the family or the household where resources are sort of being called into question about who exactly is going to manage what, who is going to earn what, who is going to spend what are we buying, what are we taking on as a loan, do we need to, remodel the house right now? These are some things that we're just throwing at the wall, but there's some connection with the reversal of shared resources, the home, and something that is very personal to you. So it might be something like, in order for me to feel like I'm living my best personal life, I need my home to be more functional. We've got to go out and get a loan, and it has to do with your husband's job or whatever. So there could be something there like that. Of course, there could be many other things that it could point to, but that's what I would look for, something in the terms of a change in fortune around a spouse's income, some material possession that is being ready to being traded in or switched out, maybe a potential for a new loan or paying off a loan, something like that, that is pulling in something very personal to yourself as a person and also your home and family. Okay, let's go ahead and put now Cancer on the ascendant. And now we're going to move this Mercury retrograde. We're going to see that this now happens in the sign of Capricorn that falls now in the 7th whole sign house for Cancer risings, right? So this is opposite your ascendant. Mercury retrograde in the 7th house of relationships and business partnerships, also of competition and things that become finalized, like lawsuits, marriage, or even sexuality. These are all the topics of the 7th house. So there could be something that is reversing within any of those things, especially since Mercury has a contact to Venus. I wonder if there isn't something that is happening in a relationship right now, some communication that needs to be expressed in order for the relationship to come back to a place of equilibrium, or back to a place where things feel like they're going to move ahead again. Capricorn is a sign that has to do sometimes with power. It's a very earthly house. So I wonder if there's something that is maybe a little bit of a power struggle, especially with Pluto being very close to Venus right now. Could be like a power struggle in a relationship, and there needs to be a discussion that's had in order to work out some issues within a partnership, relationship, love affair, anything like that. Maybe it has something to do with sex or sex life or something like that. Now we're going to pull in here the houses topically of the third house, this time with Cancer rising and with the 12th house. So the third house, this could pull in topics that have to do with your daily routines, your mental habits, your just the everyday environment maybe shifting in some sense, or is affected by something that is being changed or called into question within a relationship or a partnership. And also there is bringing in the topics of the 12th house, since Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, and Gemini is occupying your 12th whole sign house for Cancer rising. So with Mars stationing to turn direct, I'm wondering if there is a shift in mental habits that have in the past had a tendency to maybe lead you astray, or maybe derail you. Maybe there is something that isn't good for you that you're trying to learn right now how to let go of, and somehow that is causing an effect on the relationship. Or it could be that there is a change in the relationship that brings in some animosity from the 12th house, and then this causes you to change your routines. So I would steer the delineation sort of in that direction, where something in relationships, something that maybe is you learning about what it is that leads you astray, that you might have to try to figure out how to let go of, a learning process, and how to let go of a bad habit or something to that effect. Okay, so that's what I'm seeing for Cancer rising. Now, if we go ahead and put Leo on the ascendant here, we are going to move this Mercury retrograde action now into the 6th whole sign house right here. So this is an interesting place to have a Mercury retrograde right now. I'm wondering with Venus here if there's some sense of powerful cathartic healing. We've got Pluto, a planet that is often associated with sort of a dark soul, a dark night of the soul, where you go through that really cathartic, transformational type of experience. It's starting out with a contact with Venus, and Mercury often in the 6th house is going to have something to do with communications that could be in conflict, or maybe not so easy. Maybe there's almost like some mental activity that is causing stress on the body and you become ill. So this is more, I think, a little bit of a challenging one, but there is something kind of stressful, and it's affecting, probably your psychology, your body. There's some sense in which you're maybe trying to get something done, but because Mercury is stopping, it's like the forward momentum kind of stops, and it becomes frustrating. And there could be some cathartic things that are happening within relationships that just seem to be stuck right now. So if that's the case, if we're getting close to something going on for Leo risings, I would just remember that Mercury is stopping, and it's a quick planet. So Mercury is going to come back towards the sun. Mercury is going to retrograde out of the station and move again very quickly and go on to the Cazimi, the heart of the sun, in not too long. This is only a 3-week cycle. So these aren't major long-term things, but these are, I think, for Leo rising, this is a necessary moment along the path in life where you go through a change, some kind of transformation, and it's just pulling in some of these areas that have to do with the mind, the body, potentially relationships. Also, topically, Mercury is the ruler of your 2nd house of money and your 11th house of friends. So maybe this has something to do with your friends and serving your friends, and wondering, how much should I serve my friends? How much do I owe to my friends? Or how much do they owe to me? Or something like that. Maybe there's even something that has to do with money and who's paying for this when we're all together, or who's investing in this part of this project that I'm working on with friends, or something like that. That might also have something to do with a power struggle within a relationship that is connected to a friend group or money or something like that. So these are some of the broad things that you could see with Mercury retrograde in Capricorn in the 6th house for a Leo rising. Okay, so let's go ahead and put now Virgo on the ascendant. So like Gemini, this is Mercury's other natural house that Mercury rules or takes care of. So we have Mercury now falling into the 5th whole sign house here. Oops, I did that circle not too good. Okay, the 5th whole sign house here, right there, which is going to make the 1st house a Mercury ruled house as well. And now the 10th house is going to be topically represented by Mercury. So what I mean by topically is that whenever a planet is overseeing a particular sign that is hovering over a house in the natal birth chart, that planet not only represents its natural signification. So for instance, Mercury is going to naturally represent communications and mental activity and so forth. But when Mercury is the ruler of your 10th house, for instance, if you're a Virgo rising and also your 1st house, those two places are also topically represented by Mercury. So we're talking about Mercury representing something about career, or something about the body or the mind or the personality. So now we have these topics coming into the 5th house. So this is a really interesting one. Now, Venus was said to have her joy in the 5th house. This is kind of a serious and cathartic Venus right now. Although she is very dignified, she's in her own joy in the 5th, and she is also an evening star. So she is a very beautiful Venus. And so right away, you have to wonder if there is some karma or fortune that is reversing some way or another with children. Something could be reversing within the direction that was happening with children, maybe getting pregnant, maybe just within a relationship with one of your children. This is interesting. This could be this could be something to do with just basic general creativity, but there's something very cathartic and deep happening right now. So this action, this reversal of potentially things that have to do with the career, potentially things that have to do with the body, is all being brought down into the 5th house of creativity. So maybe maybe you feel like who you should be as a parent means that you need to rework some of your time with your children, and this maybe has some kind of effect on your career or your work, something like that. Maybe this is a time where you find out that you're going to start taking fertility drugs or something like that because you want to try to have a baby, and it's having a very big personal effect on your psychology, and also again your career, because you're planning a new life as a potential parent or something along those lines. Maybe there is something happening with a child at school that causes you to I don't know, get involved more, and now you're like being a PTA mom or something like that. And so we're seeing the new direction in not the career as in the 10th house, but just in the public as in the 10th house. Maybe a new direction as just a public figure that has something to do with being involved in your kids' sports, or being involved in your kids' education, or something along those lines that causes a redevelopment of who you are as a person, looking at the 1st house ruler Mercury here. So that is some of the possibilities I could see. Pregnancy, children, career, something very personal. Okay, let's go ahead and put now Libra on the ascendant. And this means that now this retrograde action is going to be taking place in your 4th whole sign house right here. So there we go. Capricorn is your 4th whole sign house if you're a Libra rising. So The fourth whole sign house is having to do with home, family, sometimes the father, um, sometimes just your security, your basic foundation. Now, having Capricorn in in the fourth house is a very earthy place to have the fourth house. So I'm wondering if there is something about land or property that's more tied in with something earthy like that, where maybe there's a reinvestment in the land somehow, or maybe there is a reversal of exchange that is happening within the home or family that has to do with something involving the land. Like maybe you're planning to do a new garden this year, or maybe you're reinvesting in the home to accommodate the family somehow. It does have a contact with Venus, which is your ascendant ruler. So there could be some contact that's very personal with you right now that's happening in the home and family, but there's something that's reversing, some change of direction that's causing you to pause and think, replan, maybe figure out something technical involving the sale of a property or the buying of a property, maybe, or just the income of the family or of the home, or maybe even if you're like a caretaker of an older parent or father, that you're having to rework some of the financials around that, and something to that effect. So something home and family that's starting to pause and change course right now. Now, topically, Mercury for a Libra ascendant birth chart is going to be falling as the 12th whole sign house for Virgo, occupying the 12th whole sign house, and then Gemini is going to occupy the 9th whole sign house. So this is interesting. We have this shadowy 12th whole sign house somehow coming into the home or family. So there might be something that you have to keep in mind. There might be something that is in the shadows a little bit. There might be something that you just don't see that is coming into the picture. And maybe that's why you're having to pause and make sure that you have to rethink something. Now, one thing, just some general things that I live by when it comes to a Mercury retrograde, because people always get scared of Mercury retrogrades, right? They're always like, oh my God, I can't buy something. I can't, sign any contracts. I shouldn't drive anywhere. I think that what it is that when Mercury is in retrograde or making a transition into retrograde, I think that there's a lot more of a tendency to misplace things or be in a rush and uh, forget things. Like last night I was on a mountain astronomy tour. One of my other jobs is as an astronomer guide, and one of the other guides unfortunately ran over his step stool that people use to get into the van on the top of Mauna Kea. Well, I know that because I've done this. I know that these step stools, you have to order them from Amazon, and the shipping is more than the actual stool, but it's like $140 bill. So if you're a lonely tour guide, that wipes out your pay for the evening. So um, now you only run over the thing when you don't remember to put it back in the van. So Mercury retrograde for me is when that's going on, it's always good to just um, double check everything. Try to get yourself to slow down. Try to be more patient so that you can go, wait a minute. Before I leave home, do I really have everything? Wait a minute. Is the stool back in the van? Like, just double check everything. Try to be a little bit more cautious about something. If you're going to sign a contract, I don't think you shouldn't sign the contract, but I think you should expect that there might be something in the contract that you didn't notice right away. And that is something like the 12th house here. So watch out for something in your blind spots within this next 3 weeks that you could discover later was something that wasn't so great for whatever it is that's happening in the home or family. Just be a little bit careful, double check things. And that's just the way it goes sometimes. Sometimes we just find out that something was in our blind spot and there's just not a lot we can do. But anyway, at least I guess the one thing you can do is just to try to do your best to not be in such a rush. We also are pulling in the 9th whole sign house. So there could be something within higher education, or perhaps even some philosophical ideologies that are being called into question. Maybe your philosophical ideologies are somehow not always the best for the home and family, or maybe you have to relearn something that is going to be more conducive to the home and family, that is the growing of a spiritual practice or a religious thing. So I could sort of see that the 12th house is sometimes transcendental and healing. So there might be something healing that is happening in the home or family that requires a new outlook of philosophy or something like that. But anyway, that's what I would say for Libra on the ascendant, Libra rising charts. And let's go ahead now and put Scorpio on the ascendant. This is my ascending sign, I should say, for my birth chart. So let's go ahead and see, where does Mercury land now? Mercury is landing in the third whole sign house. So the third house has to do with your routines, your daily rituals, the sometimes like short travel to just places around your town or your city, like what are the places that you typically go to? You usually go to like a particular grocery store or a restaurant, or you're going back and forth commuting to work or what have you. But Mercury is that sort of environment that is you're constantly in. It's the routine of the regular day that you do, the nighttime routine. All those routines, there's something that could be changing or shifting. Also, part of those routines is our mental habits, our mental routines that we get into. Some of those things could be shifting or changing, especially since Mercury is a planet that is associated with the mental dexterity of the mind, right? Or the movements and the dexterity of the mind, I should say. So there could be something changing in just your daily routines. Now let's pull in the 11th house, because Virgo is the ruler of the 11th house, and the other Mercury ruled sign, Gemini, is the ruler of the 8th house for Scorpio risings. There could be something that is pulling in friends, groups, goals, associations, maybe like work or career goals, something that has to do with resources, maybe within a relationship or partnership. And this is causing something to change or shift within the daily routines. Maybe you're doing something more technical, something on social media, something on maybe something that you're learning that is pulling in a shift in the resources of your family or within your relationship. And maybe there is, like, for instance, one person was normally paying for one thing, and you're taking over that payment or something like that. Maybe you're paying down a bill or a debt, and this is causing you to maybe shift up just basic, regular, mundane types of things. Like, instead of leaving at 5 a.m., you leave at 6:30 because, now you have to drive somebody to school or something like that. There's just a shift in your routines. And there is also a shift maybe that is pulling in the 11th house topics of goals or groups or associations that you belong to. So maybe there's some new groups that's coming into the picture that's changing the routines, or you're, let's say, spending more time with a particular group. And so in order to do that, you are spending less time in your regular routine doing something else, something along those lines, I would say. All right, let's go ahead now and pull let's go ahead and put Sagittarius onto the ascendant. If you're a Sagittarius rising, now we have Mercury retrograde taking place in the second whole sign house of money and resources. So, of course, we could always see a shift in money or resources. Maybe you're learning a new skill that has something to do with being able to one day make resources or money or something, a shift in your livelihood based on something you're learning. Maybe there is a shift in somebody that is like a personal helper. It could be like an accountant or somebody that you rely on to manage your daily life, like in terms of like maybe financial or something like that. So it could be like even somebody like a babysitter that you rely on if you're having somebody watch a child when you go to work for a shift or something like that. Something is being slowed down in the money house and getting ready to reverse course. Now, there is a contact with Venus here, so it could have something to do with a relationship, of course. Now, we are also going to pull in the 10th whole sign house because Mercury is the ruler of the 10th if you're a Sag rising, and also the 7th whole sign house. So, of course, again, we're going to bring in some of these major topics. We're going to bring in the career, the work, and also the relationship or the marriage. So there could be a shift in those things that is changing your financial stability. Now, I don't want to alarm you. Again, these are fast transits. We have Mercury retrograde is only happening over the next 3 weeks, but this is going to be a shift that maybe has longer effects after the retrograde is over. But I would say that something is shifting in financial matters personally for you. Doesn't necessarily mean bad or good. It just means that something could be shifting. With Venus, with a contact with Venus here, I wonder if it's almost something good, because Venus is a benefic planet. So it could be that it's like you see a new way in which to get money, and maybe your partner is somehow instrumental in helping you do that right now. And maybe that somehow pulls in some activity within the workplace or within the action or reputation that you're it has an effect on your actions or your reputations out there in the world. So something to that effect, pulling in those topics, the partnership or relationship, the work or reputation, and your money or finances for Sagittarius rising. All right, let's go ahead now and put Capricorn on the ascendant. Now, this is going to be your first whole sign house that the retrograde is taking place in. So this is a very existential place for any retrograde to happen, is within your first house, because the first house is quintessentially you. It is your body, it is your mind, psychology, personality, your character. It is the beginnings and inceptions of things. So I wonder if you're going back to the drawing board, and if it has something to do with your physical appearance based on it being contacting the planet Venus as it goes into the retrograde. There may be something that you're changing physically about yourself, your appearance, your style, your maybe your the way that you like your what do you call that, not your ego but your self-esteem. Maybe this is something where there's going to be a shift in your self-esteem, where you're learning how to be a little bit more friendly to yourself and rethink how it is that you think about yourself as a person. Maybe you're reworking something within your personality, or maybe you're starting something new like a diet or an exercise routine. But essentially, it is quintessentially about you, and instead of other topics of life. So we are also going to pull in, however, though, the 6th house, because we have Gemini occupying the 6th house for Capricorn rising, and also we're going to pull in the 9th house. So there could be something that ties in service work, or maybe even some strife. We do have Mars in the 6th house getting ready to station and turn direct. So I almost wonder if there's going to be some breakthrough in who you are fundamentally, that has a connection with how is it that you're serving people, how is it that you're getting the harder things that you have to do for your own life done, that also ties in with you learning something new about yourself philosophically, that helps you understand yourself in a deeper way, that moves you, into a better position down the road. Something that could be very cathartic, because we again have Pluto contacting in close proximity to this stellium here in your first house. So yeah, I think it's something to do with that. Okay, let's go ahead now and put Aquarius rising on the ascendant. And we're going to see now that the Mercury retrograde is happening in your 12th whole sign house. This is an interesting place to have Mercury retrograde, because the 12th whole sign house was traditionally a place that had to do with sometimes being isolated, sometimes being like marooned or incarcerated. Sometimes there were things where you undid yourself, or you had to deal with secret enemies. So a Mercury pausing and going retrograde, it's sort of like Mercury is about to enter the shadow and die out in a house that is already very shadowy. So I have to think that this probably is a precursor to Pluto moving into your first house later on, which is not that far off from now, in a couple of months. So I'm wondering if there's something you're reworking now that it has something to do with Pluto in this case. But it's as if you need to go a little bit more into the transcendental inner space and try to work out something, right? It's like you need time, you need that walk in the woods away from everybody, to sort of process or think about something. And there could be something that an issue that you're dealing with. There could be something that's stressing the mind that is causing some, mental anguish or solitude. So this one is a little bit more tricky. I would just know that it's a little bit more of a dark night of the soul kind of thing, but it doesn't last forever. It's only a few weeks, and then the anguish should subside. And I think you'll come out learning something that is really valuable, that brings you more squarely back to who you are as a person, because it's connected to the first house, in so much as Pluto is going to be moving into the first house pretty soon. And this retrograde is all happening pretty close to Pluto. So something like that. Of course, you always want to watch out for maybe putting your foot in your mouth, causing unnecessary conversations that lead to, alienating yourself, or, offending somebody, which oftentimes for Aquarius rising is not going to be something that you're acutely aware of. So this could be a time where you say something wrong to somebody and they get offended, and then they hold a secret grudge or animosity for you. So, and that might have to be reworked out in the process of the Mercury going retrograde over the next 3 weeks. So that is some of the possibilities I could see for Mercury retrograde in the 12th. So let's go ahead now, and last but not least, let's put Pisces on the ascendant. And this is going to show the Mercury action happening in your 11th whole sign house right here. And so this is a house that is associated with friends and groups. We have this contact with Venus again. So there's something maybe that is about friendships that you're really feeling some need to pause and rethink a friendship or an association, or maybe there is an emergence where there's a transition from one place that you are often being social in to another place. Like if you get a new hobby, right? Let's say maybe you're getting into some new hobby, and this is causing a transition into a new social group or something like that. This also could have something to do with, let's pull in the 7th house of marriage and relationships and the 4th house. So this is pretty angular. So we're bringing in major topics here, relationships and home and family. This could be just a very social time where maybe there's a shift around how much time you're hanging out with friends versus how much time you're at home, how much time you're spending with a partner or in a relationship versus how much time you're socializing at home. Something is shifting around social dynamics, I would say. And this, I think, is going to have some kind of, correlation with the relationship or with partnerships, and also something about the home or time at home, or what have you, 4th house types of things, home and family, property. That's what I'm seeing for Pisces rising, is the energy sort of reversing in the 11th house of friends, groups, goals, ambitions, social activities, even like social media, things like this. There's something new coming in. There's some new shift that is maybe transitioning one social situation into another, or maybe there's a pause in a social situation where friends are busy and they're You're no longer hanging out with them as much. Something is shifting within social activities, I think, within the 11th house. And it has some kind of direct impact on your home and family or your relationship. So that's what we've got for Pisces rising with the Mercury retrograde happening in your 11th whole sign house. All right, well, that's what I've got for the Mercury retrograde. Just some basic delineations to point you in the right direction. Please feel free to share anything in the comment section that you're comfortable sharing about your rising sign and what Mercury does in retrograde for your particular horoscope. That's always fun to hear. I'll be back Monday. Have a great weekend, you guys. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Take care. Bye.